Guys, we have to talk about Star Wars. The D23 Expo, Disney Expo thingy has just commenced. Part of that was the Star Wars Celebration event, at which we've been shown some new footage, some old footage. We've found out that Ewan McGregor's returning as Obi-Wan in his own show on Disney+. We got a nice Mandalorian trailer, so good stuff there. Really enjoyed it. Part of that celebration also was a 1-hour Rise of Skywalker panel. And this is what I kind of want to focus the attention of this video on, because I feel that panel was like such a representation of where Disney Star Wars is right now. I'm also going to get into the big Rey controversy, right, where we've seen footage of her wielding like a double-edged red lightsaber, looking like she's joined the dark side. So I'm going to talk about that and my speculation on Rey's fate at a later point in this video, so stay tuned for that. But the main reason why I want to make this video is because once I finished that 1-hour panel, I was like, Jesus, man, they're just feeding the trolls with this. Because there are so many people out there, and that's also why I don't like making videos about Star Wars that much, because there are so many people out there on YouTube who just like relentlessly hate on Disney Star Wars. And I get it. You don't like the movie. I understand. But you don't need to make 600 videos about how terrible and how responsible Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy is. It just gets ridiculous at some point, right? So just as a disclaimer, I don't see myself as one of those people. However, that and Disney's response to those haters are kind of symptomatic for what's going on with Disney Star Wars. Because even you come forward and you have valid criticism and you want to engage in a conversation and you say, look, those things just don't add up and that was maybe not the best decision. They're like, no, you're a troll. You're not invited to any of our panels anymore, ever. You're blacklisted. And in fact, we're going to flag all your videos that are about Star Wars. And Disney is just acting like an asshole, right? And I can understand, they're like, look, all these haters, they're acting like assholes, so we're gonna act like assholes as well. But it's like, guys, come on. Like, some people have actually valid criticism. So again, that's quite symptomatic for the bigger problem. But let's get into it. There's a lot to unpack here. Unfortunately, I can't show you any footage of the panels and stuff because, like I said before, Disney has a very itchy trigger finger when it comes to flagging videos of people who are just remotely critical of Disney Star Wars. They're like, oh, there's a picture of Rey, in the background, stamp size, so we're gonna flag that video, and this guy will not make a single cent of it. So I unfortunately can't show you the footage. I'll link the actual panel that I'm talking about, the 1-hour panel, down in the description. You can go watch it for yourself after this video, and hopefully it will make some sense. So just summarizing, basically it was a 1-hour panel about the new movie, about the Rise of Skywalker, with most of the actors on stage, with J.J. Abrams on stage, with Kathleen Kennedy on stage, Anthony Daniels, who was the guy who plays C-3PO, Billy Dee Williams, the original actor who played Lando. They were all on stage, and they had their moment. They tried to talk around the new movie without spoiling anything, obviously without giving anything away, playing on the excitement, basically. However, I watched it, and as I was watching it, I was like, Jesus, dude, this feels like the most controlled and staged and most disingenuous thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand how marketing works, right? You want to shed a positive light on your thing, you don't want to get caught up on negative stuff, and you just want to move forward and present the new things and get people rallied up and excited about the thing you're trying to sell. After all, I mean, Star Wars Celebration is just another advertising channel for Disney Star Wars. That's basically what it is. However, it's a thin line to walk in these kind of panels between coming across as fake and controlled and disingenuous and staged, and remaining natural and suggesting that people on stage actually have fun and enjoy doing what they do. And that was missing completely, in my opinion. I mean, Anthony Daniels, again, the guy who plays C-3PO, he came out a few times and he had fun and he engaged with the audience. And I just felt like he genuinely was happy to be on the stage with Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, and he was proud and he had fun and he was enjoying it as much as you can. But everyone else, it just felt like we're walking on a marketing minefield, right? The fear of saying one wrong word. And even the host of the show, Stephen Colbert, who we know who's very confident, self-confident in his daily late night show, he came out and it just felt like he was not relaxed. It felt like he's been briefed by 20 executives and 15 marketing people before he went on that stage with like clipboards saying, listen, don't say this, okay? And Stephen, don't address that, and don't say that. If someone from the audience shouts something, don't reply. We don't want to talk about this. And it just puts you in a state of paralysis, right? It puts you in a state of constant fear where you're like, okay, I'm getting paid a lot to host this panel, so I don't want to screw it up. So I do want to play by those rules that these people set me, but it doesn't make it easy for me, right? It felt like they wanted to control everything that happened in that room down to the smallest bit. And always when you try to do that, it goes wrong, right? In very few cases, like some people have mastered the art of controlling environments and presentations and still make it come across as like genuine to an extent, like Apple, for example, right? But you could see that it didn't work. For this particular panel, it just didn't work. It just always felt like there was this omnipresent giant elephant in the room of a large group of people who dislike the new movies. Some of them are like horrible trolls and haters, I get it, but some of them have valid criticism, like Solo flopped, The Last Jedi wasn't received well, so Star Wars is not what it used to be. It's not as exciting, as genuinely happy as it was, let's say, in 2014, when people found out that there's going to be, a new Star Wars movie coming. That was genuine excitement. Now it felt like the audience was carefully selected to recreate that genuine excitement of Star Wars before 2015, which basically underlines and admits that the genuine excitement has died down for many. So let's just kind of fake it. Let's carefully select the audience. And I know of news outlets, of like websites that are not invited, intentionally not invited and not allowed at those events, even they never expressed any critical thought of Disney's Star Wars, right? They just don't invite them for whatever reason. They are blacklisted. They can't attend those events. So there is like this really fearful selection going on of Disney behind the scenes, where they're like, oh yeah, those fans are fine, but those fans are not fine. So you're separating your audience, right? And I understand it. Again, you don't want like hardcore right-wing Star Wars haters in your audience. You don't want that. I think there needs to be some kind of filter. But the way we're seeing it, it's just a bit disturbing. And to be honest, again, it's quite symptomatic of the bigger picture and the bigger problem that Star Wars has at this point. And again, at this panel, it didn't feel like the people who were on stage were enjoying it. There was no enjoyment. There were no positive vibes. It was just all like carefully thinking about what you're gonna say, and even questions were just answered with answers that had no relation to the questions, right? I remember in the beginning, Stephen Colbert asked, I think, JJ or Kathleen Kennedy, whoever, was like, listen, how does it feel when you now know all this information, right? You know what's going to happen, but you can't release it, and you're just an inch away from soon releasing this onto the people and then bringing them in. How does it feel for someone who's in control of that information? And she was just like, well, I think you will love what we're going to show you in the new movie, and J.J. Abrams is the best. And it's like, yeah, that's good, but that doesn't answer the question. I mean, admittedly, it's not a particularly smart question. It's just what I remember now on top of my head, where they're like just answering completely unrelated things. I feel like I'm watching a politics debate where you ask a politician about A and he answers with something that's related to the letter K. And it's like, that doesn't answer the question. So the whole thing felt impregnated with fear, with insecurity, with not doing anything wrong. It's like I said, it's like walking on a marketing minefield. It's like reading pages in a marketing handbook. And there was no single critical reflection, right? Like I said, this elephant in the room. I mean, I get it. Now we're talking about a panel that's about episode 9, and it's maybe not the right place where you want to critically reflect about Rian Johnson, The Last Jedi. I get it. But at this whole event, and since this wave of criticism started, there has not been a single moment of like just public acknowledgement and kind of taking a stand to it, where Kathleen Kennedy comes out or whoever, Rian Johnson, and they sit down and they're like, listen, we know these things weren't great. We know these movies underperformed. We know a lot of fans are not particularly happy. That's how we're going to address it. At the same time, there are a lot of haters out there who are ridiculous. We don't want to feed them. I get all that, right? But that it's just never acknowledged and everyone's just trying to silence it. And we get that a lot with other companies as well. Like when big things go wrong, you just try to sit it out, right? Just like wait in silence and hope that it goes away. But to be honest, I've got a feeling it's not going to go away. It's just going to get worse, right? And if you don't address it, if you never take a stand and say, look, yes, these things didn't go well, we're working harder on it. One step that I really appreciated was when Disney came forward and said, look, now we're putting Star Wars on hold for a while. We realized that Solo, we overfed the audience. People are kind of fed up with Star Wars movies for now. They don't want any more So let's put it on hold. And then a week later, I mean, that's exaggerated, but a few months later, they're like, and we already have a new trilogy plan starting 2022. And it's like, no, you just said you're going to put it on hold. Like, that means wait. It doesn't mean do a new trilogy in 2 years' time. Like, that's not putting it on hold. They just don't learn, right? And they don't address their own mistakes. And I think that's going to amplify itself and become worse and worse. And you could see that other people who take part in the movies, I mean, are not particularly happy with it as well. I mean, for example, Mark Hamill didn't attend this event, right? It might be because, I don't know, he's not in the new movie or he doesn't play as big of a role, so Disney said you don't need to come. But I think it probably, and I'm speculating, I don't know this, but I think it probably was in parts his decision, where he's like, look, I'm not particularly happy where you're taking this brand. I mean, he expressed strong criticism of how Luke was written in The Last Jedi, and rightly so. The only point in the whole panel where I felt they kind of subconsciously addressed all the critics was when Kelly Marie Tran was announced and she was introduced on stage. And she got standing ovations and an extra long applause. And to be honest, I think that's great, because this whole manhunt that comes out of The Last Jedi and the hate for Star Wars, where people are like going personally against Kelly Marie Tran and bullying her off Instagram or whatever, it's just ridiculous. Okay, if someone comes to you and says, look, you got the role, you're going to play in Star Wars, you're going to be like, great. You're not going to be like, oh, but is it like a really weirdly written character? That's not Kelly Marie Tran's fault. She just got a great chance to act in an amazing movie, and she did a fair job, in my opinion. So to hate against her personally is ridiculous. So in that panel, she got standing ovations, and I think that was great because, you know, she was happy to get so much positive feedback and acknowledgement for what she did, and that's really positive. I see that, and I fully support that. Yet at the same time, that was the only point where I was like, those standing ovations and those people clapping, they are basically acknowledging that a lot of shit went down. Okay, and it's not just about Kelly Marie Tran. A lot of shit went down around Star Wars. Some of it over the top, some of it is justified. So let's address it, right? Should we maybe do a panel instead of 1 hour talking around episode 9 without saying anything? Should we do a panel where we address what may have gone wrong and how we can move forward from here? Should we engage in a dialogue with the fans? And I think that would really, some kind of dialogue would really help. You know, give fans the feeling that their voice is being heard and not just ignore it and try to sit it out and wait. Now let's talk a little bit about the new footage that we've been shown. I mean, obviously the biggest thing was this Rey scene, one hand where she's standing kind of in between two mirrors and you see like 100 Reys behind each other and everyone's talking about clones. The other scene is where she's wielding the red lightsaber with 2 blades and everyone's like, oh my god, she's on the dark side. Well, I don't think it's about clones personally. Of course, I don't know, but my speculation is they would not introduce like a Rey clone story and suddenly there's a second Rey that is now controlled by the Emperor or something like obscure like that. I don't think that feels right. You know, that would be something that you would build up towards in the other movie. So I don't think it's going to be about clones. My theory is the whole thing with her, you know, reflection, seeing herself 100 times and her being on the dark side is just another vision. Okay, comparable to the vision that we've seen in the original films where Luke on Dagobah goes into the tree and he sees himself, right, in Vader's mask and all that kind of thing. I think it's a similar scenario. We've seen it before. Rey has those visions where she sees the past, the future, and alternate realities or whatever. So I think it's just going to be that. And that already breeds disappointment, right? Because people take it and they're like, oh my god, this is a big reveal. What's going on with Rey? And then in the movie, it's just a little side note in a vision, and it's like, yeah, great. Well, that wasted our time. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know. But also, we've seen like an extremely nostalgic trailer where they showed the old characters and then going into the prequels and then moving into the new trilogy. And that's a weird thing, right? Because in the past, Disney was like, no, we got to draw a line under the past, right? We got to move forward. We don't want to recycle all those characters. It's not about nostalgia. It's about creating new characters, right? A new universe with new characters. And now they're showing us a trailer which is completely built on nostalgia, which doesn't really make sense. And then they are mixing in these superlatives, right? Like we're seeing 100 Star Destroyers. And I'm seeing it and I'm like, guys, you remember when we were excited about one Star Destroyer flying over us in A New Hope? And I get it, it's different times. You know, we now can do things that we couldn't do at that time. But I mean, you're putting this trailer together and you have to carefully select those scenes that you put in there. And then you choose a scene with like hundreds of Star Destroyers, and that represents your vision for the next Star Wars movie. Star Wars, to me, has always been about the characters. And I think most people would agree, right? It's about developing characters, character arcs, and how they interact, how they are together, and how they can overcome great challenges. And you can argue that that's in this movie, but it's constantly overshadowed with those superlatives and a quite convoluted narrative. And suddenly we're in this weird casino in The Last Jedi, and it just starts to feel extremely messy, right? We started from a quite simple, straightforward narrative arc with The Force Awakens. And yes, you can say it recycled A New Hope and all that. I hear your arguments, blah, blah, blah. But it still had a certain simplicity. That movie was simple in its narrative structure, and I really liked that. And now with The Last Jedi, they kind of diluted it. The Last Jedi, in my opinion, was a lot about forcing surprises in there. They're like, look, dude, fan fiction has done everything. We have to do something that fan fiction has not done. It's like, no, but guys, I mean, maybe we should just look at how we develop those characters. No! The main objective here is that we surprise those fans, that we catch them off guard and show them something that in their wildest dreams they never could come up with. And that's not how you make a good movie in general, whether it's Star Wars or something else. Like, it's a weird approach. So that convoluted, that simple narrative, and now we're in part 3 of that trilogy and we have to turn it around again. And I'm pretty sure that J.J. Abrams is very concerned about simplicity in that narrative and how you bring everything to a conclusion. I don't admire the man for that job, honestly. It's a tricky thing to do. I don't want to be in that position. I'm sure he's going to do a fine job, but it's a massive challenge that he's facing. But I feel maybe it's already too late. With The Last Jedi and the structure that we currently have in the new trilogy, like the build-up of the characters and stuff, I'm not sure you can actually make a movie that returns this trilogy to a more simplistic story, right? And I mean, that's just my personal opinion, because I feel something that I really enjoyed about the original trilogy, and to an extent also the prequels, but, they got very political at times and got a bit diluted as well. But especially the original trilogy, I really enjoyed the simplicity of the narrative. It was just a really beautifully simple story that started and ended. It had a middle part, and you saw characters evolving and their decisions made sense. And it was beautiful because it was simple. And now I feel we've lost that simplicity already, and I'm not sure whether we can bring it back. Guys, that kind of concludes the video. I mean, I could keep banging on for hours about this. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave it a like. I'd really appreciate that. You can subscribe to the channel. Every now and then I do videos like this. Sometimes I do video game live streams and all kinds of stuff. I'd appreciate to see you every now and then around on the channel. Leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell, share your thoughts down in the comments. Follow me on Twitter. I'll put the link to that in the description as well. So follow me there. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bye.